Hello and welcome back to Scaled Down Customs. For this session's build videos, I'm going to be working on AMT's 63 Corvette, the Stingray, the split window. This is a re-release by Round 2 Models. Not really sure how this is going to end up. I'm thinking of doing some sort of a restomod or pro touring or something like that. We'll see how it ends up. But anyway, so we've got our normal chrome parts tree, which most of this I'll probably be stripping down, and body, tires. I love when AMT does these pad printed tires. The glass, the rest of the parts, the decal sheet with the racing decals. That actually looks really, really nice. I really like those stickers, although I'm probably not going to be using them. Wow, those look really great. And then just the basic instruction sheet, as you can see. It's a pretty simple kit, not a lot to it. AMT, these are really good starter kits. If you're just kind of getting into it, getting back into it. Another nice little feature that AMT does is they include a mini box. You can collect the box art if you want, and that way you don't have to keep the whole big box. You can downsize it a little bit, and that way you can still keep the box art for the collection and not take up as much space. So that's kind of a neat little feature. The exhaust is molded into the chassis, so it makes it a little bit more difficult to paint, but we can work with that still. Interior's pretty basic. Everything's in there. The seats, the door cards, everything's already in there. Again, makes it a little bit more difficult to detail paint, but it's still workable. Body looks pretty good. Some of the panel lines, I'll scribe those down a little bit deeper. Our mold lines we'll have to take off, but not too bad. Comes with straight through axle pins. The tires they look really knobby. Maybe these are the off-road tires, I don't know. But the racing slicks actually look really good. But like I said, I'm not sure if I'm going to end up using these tires or not. We'll just have to see as the build goes on. And this is a 1/25th scale kit, so this is going to be a little bit smaller than the 1/24s. So again, not too many parts. A couple different options for the engine, including a couple of different hoods. 2 separate engine blocks. Oh, that's interesting. Dashboard looks pretty good. Some detail gauges there. We could detail paint that up a little bit. Some pretty good flashing going on. We'll have to just clean that up. That's pretty typical with these AMT kits. Nothing we can't take care of. Looks like the steering wheel got a little bit tweaked on there. Some of the spokes are bent. Let's see if we can fix that. First things first, I'm going to mark up these mold lines so I know where they are. I can see them a little bit better, and then we'll clean them off. Just so you can see what I'm talking about. I use the marker as a guide coat. So you can see there's a pretty substantial line there on the top of the fender, and of course that's not supposed to be there on the real car, so it's just part of the mold process that comes on almost every kit. Just one of the things you have to take care of as a modeler. I'm going to get this thing marked up and sanded down and ready for paint. Alright, so I might have gone a little crazy. I think I'm going to do some sort of a resto mod with this car. So I ended up taking out the cowl vents. I'm going to blend in the windshield mount, the drip rail. I took off all the chrome trim around the windows, all the badging, basically everything that sticks up on the car. I smoothed everything off, including taking the vents out of the hood. So I want everything to be nice and smooth. So we'll see how that works out in the end. The other thing I'm going to need to figure out is the glass sits down inside the car and it's way down below, so I want to see if I'll have to figure out if I can cut this glass and then be able to fit it a little bit more. So I'll have to see what I'm going to do with the glass. So about ready for a coat of primer on this to kind of see my high and low spots and keep refining the body. All right, we've got the body all primed up, and I just need to sand it down to get it ready for paint. Because it's so curvy and there's a lot of fenders and things that I don't want to burn through the primer on, I'm going to use a sanding sponge by Tamiya. This is the 3000 grit. So I know I haven't posted a video in a while, and the reason is because I got kind of caught on this current project where a couple of spots where I filled in some of the body pieces, especially on the hood, I filled in the vents. Every time I prime it, the primer becomes uneven because of the different surface textures. So I've been trying some different primers, and so far I'm really liking this Mr. Surface Primer 1000. This has been pretty good. Goes on really nice, lays down really smooth, sands up really nice. So I've been doing several layers of priming, letting it set, sanding it down a little bit, using the liquid Mr. Surface 1000 primer, applying it with a brush to some of the spots where it's soaking in or there's divots or unevenness. Let that set up, sand. So I've been doing probably, I don't know, several coats with that. So it's been kind of, I've been hung up on that for quite a few days actually, just over a week. So what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna move forward with some of the other painting. I'm gonna get the chassis, the interior, and some of the other parts painted up so that I can move along with some of those other things while in the midst of getting the body ready for paint. So that way I can kind of keep going and show you guys kind of where I'm at. Let's do some flocking for the interior. So to do that, just got some white glue, my tea sifter, a couple brushes, and some Ken's custom fuzzy fur. Alright, looks pretty good. I think I got a little too ambitious, tried to do this all in one shot. Got a little bit too dry on the wheel wells there, but most of that looks pretty good. Alright, so moving on. Before we do some engine assembly, I want to put a wash on this. To do that, I'm going to be using some Mr. Weathering color by Mr. Hobby. So I'll be using that, and this is just my regular lacquer thinner, and then some Mr. Hobby solvent to kind of take it back down to the level that we want. So let's start doing that. right, I'm going to put that in the dryer and let that sit up for just a few minutes, and then we'll start taking it back down to the level that we want. And we'll use the solvent to take most of it off, but also to just kind of thin it and help it flow into the cracks and crevices. Alright, pretty happy with that. Just want to highlight those, or actually darken the shadows and the cracks and crevices. Just makes it look a little more realistic. Alright, so let's let that dry up and then we'll start some engine assembly. Alright, so we got the engine together, looking pretty good. I'll probably add a little bit more like a Tamiya Panaline accent color at the end just to highlight the valve covers a little bit more at the end. So even though I'm doing a restomod for the body, I decided to keep the stock 327, the fuel injection version of the engine, just because it was really rare. Not a lot of cars had them. It was a kind of an expensive option back in the day to add that on. Supposedly this engine produced about 360 horsepower, a little bit finicky. A lot of shops would actually tear the fuel injection off and put a carburetor back on it just because they didn't know how to work on them. So it's a pretty rare engine, so I decided to keep the fuel injection, or the Fuelie engine, even though it's a restomod car. So I'm going to stick with this one. All right, so that'll do it for this video. Thanks for watching, guys, and we'll see you on the next one.